So The Prodigy came out this past week and is directed by Nicholas McCarthy and stars Taylor Schilling and Jackson Robert Scott, who of course played Georgie in the It remake. Jackson Robert Scott plays a little kid. Taylor Schilling plays the mom. So the kid's name is Miles, and he ends up being born on the same day that this serial killer ends up getting killed. And somehow or another, the serial killer is able to reincarnate himself into Miles. So it's basically a grown man serial killer living inside of Miles. And so Miles is able to do all these genius intellectual things as he's growing up at an early age, and it takes his parents by surprise. And eventually, his mom takes him to a specialist, and the specialist brings up the reincarnation theory, and she doesn't believe it at first, but eventually goes through, and basically we have our movie. So let me just get off with anything that I didn't really like about the movie, because for me, I had high hopes going into this movie because before the movie came out, there was a lot of reports that the movie had to be recut because it was deemed like too scary or whatever. And honestly, if that actually had to be the case, I do not know like how much this movie they actually had to cut, because when it comes to being scary, I was not really scared that much at all. Now, obviously, I'm not saying this is a movie you should have on while you're trying to go to sleep. All I'm saying is there are scarier movies out there, and for the hype that it built up, saying they had to cut some of the stuff because it was too scary, it definitely was a disappointing watch when it wasn't really as scary as I'd hoped or thought it would be. Now, there were people in the theater that were tensing up at certain moments, and the movie does get tense. It's just not really anything groundbreaking in the terms of spook and scares like Hereditary was, in my opinion. Another thing I didn't like about this movie is it's really run-of-the-mill when it comes to this plot. We've seen plenty of movies before about some sort of possessed kid, and it plays out basically how you think it would. We've got the trope, the dad doesn't believe the mom. The mom's always trying to convince the father there's something spiritual going on with the child, and he's not having any of it. We've got the same thing here. And then the ending, I didn't really care for the ending. I don't really think it's satisfying. All the buildup we get is leading towards an ending that should, pay off and be satisfying, but it's not really, in my opinion. So you'll have to make that determination for yourself whether or not you like the ending, but I personally did not like it. Now, good things about the movie, it has a good pace. It's only an hour and a half long, and where we are at the beginning to where we get to at the end, obviously a lot of stuff had to happen in order for us to get there, so the pacing is really good, not really a dull moment in the movie. And also the logic for, an unrealistic concept as we have, as far as I know, reincarnation doesn't exist, but this movie portrays it like it does, and it has really good logic. Within the film, things seem to make sense as they should. So that's always a plus when a movie can make sense and it's not all over the wall and you have the audience confused about what's happening, why it happens, or whatever. I wish they could have, given a little bit more backstory to the killer that's actually inside of Miles, maybe figure out how he learned how to reincarnate or whatever, but maybe we'll get that in a sequel. Who knows? But as far as the film goes, like the pacing, like the logic, but in terms of it was very run-of-the-mill. Like, it's not an overall bad movie. It's just something that we've seen before, and there are better versions of this movie out there. So this movie doesn't lend itself, for me anyway, to ever watch it again. Like, it's not going to kill anyone to go see it, but after they've seen it once, I don't think they would have any reason to ever want to revisit that movie. So that's the rating I'll give it. There's no reason to ever watch it again once you've seen it once. So that's my review of The Prodigy. Hope you guys enjoyed.